Before we start working on the UV layout of our monster, let's take some time to first of all get familiar with some of the tools that we'll be using throughout this kit. Okay, so to go ahead and start things off, let's start with just a simple polygon primitive. Okay, I'll go ahead and start with a sphere. Okay, zoom in on this. And to be able to see the UV layout of this object, what we need to do is go up to Window, and about halfway down, you'll find the UV texture editor. Okay, let's open this. And now we can see the UV layout of our selected object. So what are UVs really? What do they do? Well, basically, the UVs are these points that are in this 2D space. Now, Maya calls this 2D space texture space. So Maya basically uses these UV points to determine how a texture is going to be placed over your polygon or subdivision object. Okay, so to better illustrate what that really means, let's go ahead and place a texture onto this object. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go to my split hypershade perspective view. Okay, and let's go ahead and put on a blend, and we'll go ahead and add just a simple checker texture. Okay, I'll go ahead and middle click, drag this onto the blend, and we'll connect this to the color. And now I can just middle click and drag this blend onto my sphere. Okay, I'll go hit it 6 on my keyboard to go to a textured view. Okay, and now you can see that texture applied to my sphere. Okay, so now let's go ahead and select this and take a look at our UV texture editor. And now you can sort of see what this looks like. You can see the grid of our polygon object, and underneath it you can see the texture. Okay, one thing that you may notice, and as you get more and more familiar with the process of UV layout, you'll run into this problem more and more often, and that is that this wireframe is actually very difficult to see on top of our texture. Areas like this, it completely disappears. So you have one of two options. You can either adjust your texture to make it easier to see your wireframe, or you can actually adjust this wireframe to make it easier to see on your texture. Okay, and I'm going to actually adjust the color of this wireframe. That can be done if you go up to Window, Settings and Preferences, and go down to Colors. Okay, what we want to do is go to this Active tab, and let's go to Objects, and the one that we want to adjust is Polygon Surfaces. So if we adjust this color, we can find a color that stands out really nicely on this checkerboard. So I'll go ahead and go with this burnt orange sort of a color. Go ahead and save that, and now you can very easily see our texture or our UV layout on top of this texture. Okay, so here's our UV layout, this burnt orange color, and you can see how it's fitting over this texture. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and make this texture window a little bit smaller so you can see what's going on here. Now let's go ahead and on this surface, let's pick a UV. And we'll go ahead and just pick any one. And you can see whenever you select a UV on your surface, it'll automatically go ahead and select that UV in your texture editor. Okay, now when you select a UV, it's going to say down here at the bottom, some items can't be moved in the 3D view. But basically what that's saying is the only place you can adjust the UV is here in the texture editor. So with this UV selected, what I can do is just pick this up, move it around, and you can see as I move it in my texture editor, you can watch that texture update over here on my 3D model. Okay, so if I were to grab, let's say, several UVs and push those around, you can see that moving these UVs around is changing how this texture fits over this surface. And that's really the whole point of UV layout. You can adjust these UVs any way you want them, and then your texture will fit accordingly. Okay, so that's basically what the UVs do, and that's how you can move these UVs around in your UV texture editor. So in the next video, we'll start to explore a little more in depth the process of making custom UV layouts.